We're going to get started. Okay, we may have some resources, and I think some more people are coming. Just remind us who we have in the audience in case we do have a specific question. Just stand up.
I'm Ann Goff, Director of Legislative Affairs for State Retirement.
State Retirement.
I'm Mark Nova, Executive Director.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Mark Nova, the Executive Director of State Retirement.
Okay.
Dominic.
Dominic, big up.
Okay, Dominic, you got last name, Dominic?
Oh, Butchko, Dominic Butchko.
As I said, we're going to start with the House version that's already been amended, and we're going to work off of that. Whatever action we take, we will just conform the Senate version in the same posture. There are a number of amendments in the back. Let's start with, these are conceptual amendments. Jesus. Senator.
In our voting packet is, are my amendments, is the reprint of my amendments in here?
Yes.
Okay, thank
It is
you. Which we haven't adopted yet.
Right. So, in your voting packet, right, so, that's correct. So this voting packet is just amendments to the version that is a third reader for both of the bills. So, when we look at 1202 and 1346, the reprints are Senator Hester's reprints. I was going based off of the expectation that you already were working off of the third reader version that you all had printed. So this is Senator Hester's reprint. There is amendments from Senator Kagan, and there are also several agency concerns and conceptual amendments towards the back.
Starting with 1346. Just understand that the 1346 reprint is the House version, and then in italicized, it does include the proposed, and I want to underline proposed amendments from Senator Hester that have not been adopted yet, which we walked through whatever day it was. And we also have amendments in the back from the administration and from Senator Kagan. And I assume the administration amendments include those from the PSC and from public safety?
Yes.
Okay. We've been joined by some more people, just so we know if we have questions, who is available in the audience. If those who didn't introduce themselves the first time can take a second to let us know who's available.
Kevin Canale, Maryland Association of Counties.
Birthday boy.
Let's not get stuck on that. Let's keep going.
Jennifer Beskin, Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services.
Kathy Call, Public Safety and Correctional Services. Ellen Robertson, DPS.
Repeating for those who are. Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, and just now the Department of General Services and Maryland Association of Counties.
And we have one more, I think.
One more, sir.
Do it as in the House or not?
Ellen, the gentleman next to you did not introduce himself.
Devin Neal, Department of General Services.
Oh,
Another Department of
so
General Services.
do it as not here. Okay. Okay. Let's start with the administration package on page 71, see how they fit in. And ladies and gentlemen, these are conceptual. If we don't like them, we don't have to move them. If we think they have merit, we either move them and ask for actual language before we do a final vote on them. I want to be efficient, but I want to take as many ideas as possible to improve the product. Okay, so we're on 71 as the amendments, I'm not real happy they are in conceptual form. And then we'll be referring back to Bill 1346. Ms. Foxworth?
Okay, so on page 71 begins the concept amendments that we'll be drawing from. So these are all from the administration as mentioned. So they begin on page 10. We're looking at third reader bill of HB 1346.
Do you pull the mic a lot closer, since
Sure.
this is going to be important for everyone to be able to hear?
And this translates to page 35.
Well, I would-
At the packet number at the bottom.
Well, I suggest going through the actual bill, not the packet, because the packet just consists of the reprints, not the bill. So for consistency, we want to have, and I can get the bills themselves printed.
Yeah,
But-
I don't want to take the time to do that. Look,
So it's the bill, so
Oh.
you can pull it up online, but it's the bill passed out last week when we had the walkthrough. So it's the third reader of House Bill
you get that
1346,
there, you brought it with you.
third reader of House Bill 1202.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have the amendment packet.
Right.
Is there a freestanding version
There-
of
the actual-
1346
Of the bill, right.
without any amendments, except the House?
Right, that's our baseline.
Oh.
So,
And did we get that today?
it's the bill that we're working through in committee. So it's the third reader file bill, not with the amendments from Senator Hester, not with the conceptual amendments. It was the original baseline
Okay.
as it came to us from the House.
Right. Are there more copies over there, or is it in my folder in the
I'll
office?
print out a few.
Use the reprint too, just ignore the italics.
Okay,
Yeah, this is going to be.
why? Okay. The first conceptual amendment goes to page 10 of the bill or 35 of the packet. Let's take one at a time and just knock through these. They're suggesting removing the criteria that was put in the House. It's very explicit criteria for how we select the CISO and what they should have in front of them. Anybody interested in moving that?
Were these the CISO qualifications we're moving? I missed that. The page 10, line 8. Okay.
This is the
okay.
first bullet from the
Okay.
administration.
Sounds good. On the same page.
I want to thank the governor's office for sharing this. This one I've seen before. I wanted to defer to the House, who spent a lot of time on this. I was thinking that, the governor has just made a policy that for four-year degrees are not always needed for certain things. In this case, I would hope that the person might have them. But you could also, instead of striking it all, you could put an or instead of an and. On page 10. But I think it's a policy question that the House made. There,
Line 13 through 16, or from,
It would be 11 to 22. Actually, it would be 11 to
well,
29 on page 10.
right, but I think the operative would be line 20. I would have to say the House felt very strongly we needed the top people here. It's very explicit criteria. I'm not inclined to want to move that amendment unless the will of the body is different.
Obviously, everybody wants qualified people. I don't think anybody wants some dunce in there. But by putting such specific requirements, you may be knocking out somebody that has really good qualifications, but doesn't meet one of these specific things in here. I mean, they're saying you shall have experience in this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. So if you have 12 of the 13, you wouldn't be able to apply for this job. It's an and, it's not an or. And so, from a state standpoint, you want the highest quality people, but you don't want to limit the pool by putting something so specific. And technology in this area changes so quickly. I think a high level, this is what we need, but to be so specific to limit what we can hire, I think is a mistake.
Let's take 30 seconds. We're on, again, packet number 35, bill page 10. Just, look, the first two are a bachelor's degree and appropriate certifications. I don't think that's very controversial. Take a minute to read line 13 through 27.
Yeah, I don't see any of those we would.
We need to get one.
What, it wasn't put on his desk? It should be on your
You should
desk.
have one. On your desk.
Mr. Chair, since we're taking a minute, I think for people following along at home, I'd like to read it aloud while people are reading it. Okay.
And I just want us to see what we're debating here, whether these are appropriate or they're too high a standard. And then we'll just make a decision. Senator Washington.
I would want to ask which of these four, if we're just talking about these four things, is that correct? Because it's under 3. So, is that correct?
It's 5.
I'm sorry, thank you, 5. So it's so it's 3I, 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4, right? Okay, so I don't know which of those I wouldn't want to have in a chief. So at least I don't see an or. And then when I look at 4 and then 5, and again, it's particularly 5, given that, one could study up for, for their interview. And then 4, again, having some knowledge of, because this is the chief. So if you're going to interact, the other thing I find too, rightly or wrongly, having the minimum of a bachelor's degree, this person is going to be interacting with a number of people and probably, there's kind of a basic assumption of at that level that they have, so they'd want to be on par with their peers. So again, I don't see an or, and I'd love to hear an or.
Okay, I'm going to try to be efficient here. We have a lot to do. Senator Simon Ayer thinks we should change this language. I think there's a majority that doesn't want to. Do you want to press it, and should we hand vote, or we have a lot to cover?
Look, I have background in similar areas. I have a master's degree in audit. I don't have infrastructure. That would take me off the list. I'm just saying, I just think it limits the pool. I'm not saying we should take it all out, but just to be so prescriptive to say that we can't have somebody if they don't have one of these specific things in their background, and they're a great candidate, so. I don't think we should strike the whole thing, but.
At some point, we have to make conceptual into real and move on to the next item.
I have a word suggestion, which is at the bottom of the page on line 20, lines 28, 29, and legislative content. If you're moving here, if we hire someone from another state or even another country, it seems like Maryland's laws are kind of the easiest things to read and learn, and I don't think they have to already have legislative experience or knowledge of our content before coming here, before we were to hire them. That seems like a reasonable deletion.
Well, personally, I'm fine with that. It's a separate question, I think, from what.
It was just trying to
Yeah.
reduce the
Well,
folks who
I'm
might
gonna-
be
I'm going to
bounced
reverse
out.
the order. Anybody object to removing the 3 words? Done. So, and legislative content is stricken. Unless I hear a motion, we leave the description of the qualification as is. And again, it's not to be dismissive, it's just, we're going to keep rolling here. Next one.
Page 11, line 19. Administration is requesting to remove the phrase "may procure resources" from the scope of the Office of Security Management's authority. This falls within a deeper question of procurement, the roles of procurement. There's this question of whether that will cause Office of Security Management and do it, because they house Office of Security Management, to have their hand in state agency procurement.
So, hold one second. Just so we have to be on the same page here. I want everyone to understand what we're doing. This is policy issue. You don't have to be an expert in cyber to set some of these policies. And so people should not be hesitant. We use our best judgment on lots of issues. So the issue, first of all, we want to be clear, the office is the Office of Cybersecurity, correct?
Office of Security Management within the Department of Information Technology.
Okay, Intuit,
And do it, yep.
okay. And it says they may procure resources to fulfill the requirements of the subtitle.
Right.
Brief, page 36, line 19 and 20. The bill numbers are at the top, the packet numbers are at the bottom. So the requirements of this subtitle, briefly, what would that encompass or not encompass?
So Office of Security Management is in general expanded to play a role in coordinating resources, helping with best practices, and in general, setting broad cyber policy.
Title covers cyber security, not IT technology writ large.
So right, so it's state and local.
That's a question, I didn't mean as a statement.
Oh, no, so it's local and state within that subtitle. So essentially, it's the same. So the Director of State and Local Cybersecurity is within the Office of Security Management. That state role is going to implement the cybersecurity strategy. They're going to create resources to implement that strategy.
Right, but Ms. Fox, I want to be very clear. The requirements of this subtitle, does this subtitle just cover cybersecurity, or does this subtitle also include other IT technology?
It includes IT and cyber.
Okay. Senator Lamb, did I see you later on a second ago or not? Okay, what's the will of the body of whether they should be able to procure the resources?
My question is, this procure research on behalf of the office or on behalf of other agencies?
So I think that's the question in terms of how it can be read. So it would be giving them the authority to procure resources necessary to fulfill the requirements. So that could theoretically apply to resources that assist with local cybersecurity, which is under that prong, state cybersecurity, which is also under that prong, any sort of information technology that touches on that as well.
Okay, so my understanding is that, DO-IT is not currently a procurement agency, that is done through DGS. And I think it's critical that DO-IT focuses on cybersecurity. My understanding is that they've worked really hard together, and there's a flow chart and like a 4-page memo about how DGS and DO-IT work together on procurement. And if that undoes the work that's been done by the administration the past couple of years, I would not support that. I think DO-IT's got a big job focusing on state cybersecurity, and we do have procurement issues, but if what you're saying is that they would be procuring for other agencies, I think that's too much for DO-IT to do.
Did DO-IT join us or not?
I don't think
I
they're
know
here.
DGS is here, and I assume you'd be happy to have this removed. Is that correct? Okay. Press. So the idea is to remove this so that DO-IT does not have the authority for procurement. You want to move to accept that and remove that language? Yes. Second, discussion? Anybody vote against that? So then the second bullet on page 73 is adopted. I'm sorry, on 71, the second one is adopted.
Page 11.
Page 36, line 19 and 20 are out. Next.
Okay, so page 11, lines 31 through 33. And if these numbers conflict, I'm working with, off of the third reader bill. If this conflicts with the reprint. Sorry? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so we're still on page 11, line 26. Again, working off of the third reader file bill. If that causes confusion, let me know. I can change course. So again, we're talking about the roles of the Office of Security Management within the Department of Information Technology, which has been expanded to have a local and a state role, which now houses the state chief information security officer, which is responsible for, in part, supporting the Secretary of DO-IT with cybersecurity strategy. So now the office is responsible under this subparagraph 2 to coordinate resources that help implement best practices, and that also assists with best practices at the state and local level. And a part of that will be coordinating resources. The administration would like the language struck that says that the Office of Security Management can coordinate resources. So it would read, the office is responsible for efforts to implement best practices in improving overall cyber preparedness for local agencies. That doesn't take from their state role, but this particular portion is just local agencies. So
This come from DGS, or can anybody speak to this amendment? I don't know who proffered it to the second floor. I mean, clearly, on page 36, you have to ignore the italics. They're proposed by Senator Hester. We'll get to those. I'm unclear if it's removing the coordination of resources. Is that all it's removing, or is it removing the whole section?
right, it's removing coordinating resources.
Okay.
And I was gonna attempt to answer who proffered it, but I'm not sure, so I'll just,
And if we don't know, we don't know.
yeah.
Okay, so the question is, we want to retain that language or dump it?
I know they should be here. They were not able to attend in person. Do-IT is watching, but there's a 3-minute delay. I mean, whatever the delay is. I mean, Aaron may be able to help us.
Hey, Aaron.
I do what I can do. It wasn't on the website.
Tell us who you are and,
Erin Chase for the governor's office. I will do my best to answer these questions.
okay,
What page are we on? Sorry, just
36 of the
36.
packet, 11 of the bill.
okay. What line?
The reprint. We're working off of the reprint, okay.
30s.
We should be close to page 11.
Coordination.
Okay, so it's page 11 of the reprint, line 26.
Thank you.
Line 26, right here.
Okay.
In
Consultation.
coordination of resources. That's it?
Thank you. Consultation. The coordination of resources. So I think this is language that might be better for MDEM. I think is probably where we were coming from with this.
Let me ask this. In 12-0 whatever, 2-5, the second bill, the local bill, this issue comes up. How's it addressed in that bill? Is it under MDEM or under the DO-IT and the Office of Cybersecurity?
Thank you for the question. In terms of the intent of both bills, when we're talking about preparedness, and resiliency, it's MDEM. When you're talking about response, it's do it. And so since both are listed in line 28, it is hard. But it's awkwardly worded because you can't separate them. Does that make sense?
Look, if you take out the coordination of resources and, then it will say efforts to implement cybersecurity best practices, blah, blah, blah. So,
That would be a good amendment.
well, that's what they're recommending. Okay, the recommendation from the administration is to remove those 5 words.
Actually, hold on one second, sorry. This was something I overlooked. So it's actually, and I had a duplicate here on this page and on the conceptual amendment that you're working through. So lines 26 and 30 may make it easier. The intent is to remove all of it. So it would be all of their hand in coordinating and implementing cyber best practices at the local level. So instead of just removing coordinating resources, it would be removing coordinating of resources, implementing best practices that impact locals. So instead of sort of carving it out, all of it would be removed from their role.
That's the administration recommendation. I'm fine with it, and will the body, if that's what the governor wants, as you know, I'm with the governor sometimes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, then that's adopted. This will probably negate
Thank you.
Senator Hester's proposed amendment as well, because we're taking out the coordination down to line 30. But we'll come back to that, but it'll probably be irrelevant. Okay, that's adopted. Next one.
So a little under 26 and 30, lines 31 and 33, which would have tasked the office with supporting the Department of Emergency Management and their cybersecurity unit. That is going to be removed because so instead of the Office of Security Management supporting the cyber preparedness unit in emergency response, the intent is for the cyber preparedness unit to support Office of Security Management because they have the technical depth to be able to sort of take lead, if you will, though there won't necessarily be a lead. But instead of them playing a role of support, administration feels like MDEM should support them.
Figure out conceptually what it means. There's language similar. I don't know. Okay. We're on the bottom of packet page 36, bill page 11. We're on the same page we've been on.
26. So we're striking this too?
No, it's just.
Well, the question is, line 31 to 33, they say require to support. So this would replace what's in there?
Well, no, it would take it out, it would take it out completely.
No.
So,
The new bullet, the 4th bullet, requires cyber preparedness on page 71.
on the reprint.
Okay, from the amendment packet, ladies and gentlemen, working off page 71 and page 36. That's what we're doing. Their 4th bullet, which is the one we're up to, we adopted the 2nd and 3rd one, rejected the 1st one. It says require cyber preparedness unit to support OSM. That concept would replace the lines 31 to 33.
Right, yeah, that would completely strike that out. So,
Discussion on that item. Anybody object to it? Please.
It sounded like they wanted to take the 2 identifying units and switch it on the paper. I don't think they wanted to remove it. I thought the plain reading says coordinating with Office of Security, OSM? Supporting the cyber preparedness, so OSM goes first and cybersecurity is second. I didn't think it talked about removing anything. The question was, which department's in charge?
Referred to in 31 to 33, is that OSM?
Yes, that's OSM. So it, by strike, it wouldn't read as OSM supporting, right? But Senator Riley is right in that the language proposed would require us to amend another part of the bill to say, instead of OSM supporting Department of Emergency Management, we would go to the Department of Emergency Management piece in public safety and say that Department of Emergency Management supports OSM in their preparedness efforts.
We're down a rabbit hole here a little bit.
We are down a rabbit hole, and I think what we're trying to do is codify existing practice, which is during an emergency, the role of MDEM is to mobilize resources. The key resource in this is the Office of Security Management. They come in and they fix it, but there's other things that have to happen at the same time. So MDEM plays the coordinating role, and OSM takes lead on fixing the cybersecurity problem. They work together.
Of their recommendation
That's a
on
question
71.
for them.
Mr. Chair, I think what we're trying to do here is not necessarily strike and not replace the language, but instead strike and replace it with the recommendation to have the Cyber Preparedness Unit, the CPU, support OSM.
Did we do it on these 3 lines?
No, we would do it on another part of the code from a drafting perspective.
So we would strike this and amend something else?
Right.
That's the motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, just to be clear, the House already removed supporting and they said coordinating. But again, I don't want to decide how many angels can dance on the head of a pin here.
Sure, strike lines 31 to 33, later in the bill, correct the notation that OSM supports cybersecurity. Oh, I'm sorry, that cybersecurity preparing us,
That,
all right, help me out,
that MDEM support OSM.
yeah.
Objection
But
to.
it won't be on that page, it'll be later in the bill.
So we're adopting 4, we're removing line 31 to 33. Keep going, next.
All right, so on page 12, there's language, this is from the executive order. So this entire, page 12 of the third reader file bill, which places us, for reprint purposes, should actually still be page 12, but I'll double check. No, I don't,
Agreed to this one.
which one? So,
We,
oh, right, sorry. So we're jumping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're jumping to 6 on page 12, lines 19 through 24. So page 11, lines 26 through 30, yes, we did that.
fine.
So we're going to page 12.
Okay, next, keep going.
So lines 19 through 24 of the third reader file bill is codifying the executive order as it pertains to Office of Security Management. And it says that Office of Security Management is going to be able to, or the State Chief Information Security Officer within the Office of Security Management is going to be able to look into all of the systems and the agents of those systems on Network Maryland and determine whether or not there are vulnerabilities within that network. They'll be able to use that information to decide whether those systems should be remained on the network. So the administration wants that removed, the assessment into the system, deciding whether it should continue, which could theoretically be them kicking them off, to replace it with language that is a little more specific. So the language included is in italics under the conceptual amendment, the sixth bullet, and they'll be able to direct or take actions necessary. And then there's also language saying that they can remediate the vulnerabilities, and they may require that the information system can be disconnected. So it's a little specific in what they are able to do. Then there's additional language saying that they can mitigate or take actions to mitigate the threat. So it's a similar action being taken. I think there was concern about it being a little too broad. But they'll still be able to look at the system, determine how to mitigate if there are vulnerabilities, and remediate those vulnerabilities.
Okay, my read of this is their recommendation is a tiny bit softer, try to resolve the
Sure,
issue
yeah.
rather than just command and control from step one. I think that's the issue. What's the will of the body?
Just to be crystal clear, in the reprint, it says, "and may require the applicable information system to be disconnected." So it's still an option, but it's now an option of last resort.
That's my reading.
Then I would move this as a favorable amendment.
Okay, any objection to adopting the item on 71? It's actually the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th bullet. Okay, that's done. That will replace the language on 19 to 24. Yep.
Just a point of order. I've sat here on a lot of committee hearings and bills. We've got 31 more conceptual amendments before we even get to our members' amendments. Why aren't we having a work group on this? I mean, this is taking up the whole committee's time, and you've probably got 50 amendments for this bill, and most of them are conceptual. And it's a late Friday afternoon.
I'm not happy either, and I promised we'd try to work through this and get it done. While these are conceptual amendments, they either replace things or not. I mean, there are a lot of them, no question about it. Look, I'm open to how to handle this, folks. This has been, I don't want to say a bit of a millstone the last 2 years, and it's very complicated, and a lot of us at times have zoned out, but it's policy issues that come back to our committee, and we still have to get it across to the street, to the House, because we don't know how they're going to see it. So I'm open procedurally, Senator. We tried a work group last summer, last fall, or during session. It had some success, but at the end of the day, obviously, no bill passed last year. So
I just don't ever recall in 15 years down here having such a complex topic come out before the committee with such conceptual, where we didn't put in a work group. And I can tell you, as far as zoning out, I imagine most of the people after a long week here on a Friday afternoon with such technical details, our product's not going to be very good.
yeah, I would say we did a similar situation on the climate bill. We've had 2 or 3 work sessions on that and didn't send it to the subcommittee. So, look, committee, I don't have all the magic answers here. I'm open to, but sometime, some hour, we're going to take this bill up with some recommended amendments, or we're going to decide them ourselves. So I'm open to suggestions. Vice Chair.
I'm a bit of mixed mind because I feel like the chair announced very early in the week and last week the timetable for this, on this bill. We've spent a lot of time on it. Senator Hester spent a lot of time, the chair has spent a lot of time, and we have a lot of people in the audience who have spent a lot of time working on this stuff, and let alone Ms. Foxworth, Ms. Chase, Aaron and others. So, but I actually have to associate myself with Senator Simoner's comments. My concern is also that MDEM isn't in the room, that DeWitt isn't in the room. I'd like the CISO. I feel like I said that out loud on Monday or Tuesday when we had our thing. I don't understand why Chip isn't here. I think we need experts, not that you all each don't have your areas of expertise as well and interests, but the people who would actually be governed by this law were it to become, were it to be enacted. I think we need to hear from them on real life scenarios. So, and I realize Senator Simoner's caution about the calendar.
But we need to understand there are policy questions that at the end of the day, we're going to have to decide. Some are nuanced, some are not. I mean, look, later in the mill, there's pieces about moving towards centralization or not. And that's a fundamental policy issue that is in our lap, just so you understand that. Should it be more centralized than it is? Some agencies don't like it, some can live with it. So ultimately, we are still going to have to grapple with some of those issues. And that's not to discount any of what you said. I also know we don't want to go through a second or third or fourth hearing on this bill. So let me hear from Senator Patterson, Senator Washington, then we'll come around to Senator Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I am, too, a little bit sensitive about the time, I guess I'm more concerned about the end product. As to whether or not physically and mentally we are focused enough to come out with a product that's going to be beneficial to the stakeholders. And, you know, I realize this is a big project, and it takes good, clear minds on a Friday afternoon to do it, I believe. So I think I would, you know, opt out to say, let's take a look at some other time. I like the approach of having a subcommittee to dive into some of the portion of this bill, but I'm also leaning toward Senator Hester. You put a lot of time, you have been our leader in this. I'm willing to buckle up and listen to what you have to say relative to this issue, because I guess it's something we can't table and come back next year and do a better job. I don't know. But we've had a lot of major projects dumped on our plate this year, more so than I can ever witness. And they've been quite in depth. So, you know, it's so much juice you can get out of orange. So I don't know. I think coming back with a fresh mind on Monday or Tuesday might be more beneficial than trying to rush it this afternoon. But I'd like to hear from the lead group. Yeah, okay.
So I guess I have two questions. The first, do we have any amendments that are not?
Thank you.
Do we have any amendments that are not conceptual?
Yes.
Could we at least, I'm saying, could we at least, because so that's one. So we do have some amendments that are not conceptual that we can review and dispense with or accept, correct?
Yes, we have basically two sets. Senator Hester's, which are a fair amount,
Right,
but they are explicit in their language.
yes,
And then the vice chair has a very
Yes.
small one.
right,
Not in importance, or
Right.
three, but they're very specific.
right.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah, in that regard, I would like to move with the amendments that, or to think about the amendments that are from our committee members, so at least we do that. And then just to the point of waiting, I mean, I've just heard, there is this kind of this expression of slow walking change to death. So I think that we, in some way, should take the absence of engagement at a critical decision point as a response to decline to participate, and that we should not allow that us to get in our way. So in other words, if there are some amendments that you have where we want additional questions on, and that we feel like there should be other people to help us answer those, we can not take those particular questions up. But I don't think we should slow the process or stop simply because there aren't people in the room today. Does that make sense? So one, let's deal with the ones that we actually have. The conceptual ones could be another group that could work over the weekend, and we could contemplate them on Monday. But I would like to be done with this.
Okay, so before I call on you, Senator, just trying to translate what I think I heard from the good senator from Baltimore. is we move on the amendments we have before us, which would be the Hester amendments and the Kagan amendments. And we were going to be coming back Monday before session anyway. We can either pick up the conceptual ones, or if they can be turned into real language or prioritized, or if we want to have a work group meet earlier on Monday to walk through them, that's an option. So that's sort of what I heard from Senator Washington. Thank you. Senator Hester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank the committee for their time. I think that the two things I wanted to point out is in my amendments, I have worked with all of the stakeholders for more than 2 months. And more than half of my amendments come from the administration and the other stakeholders in the audience. And so I feel like we're kind of coming full circle. Some of these, are new, and which is kind of a shame, because if I'd had them a week ago, I would have included them in my amendments. But I don't think it's quite as bad as it looks, because at these conceptual amendments at the back, they reference 2 different bills, and they're coming from different places, and some of them I've already dealt with. So I'm just saying that it's not as bad as it looks. The other thing that I personally am struggling with is just having a draft that we can, the amendments that speak to the draft. And I don't know if that makes sense. Let me try to clarify. Just having a good set that we're working off of, so that we can match the amendments to the bill. And I think that is hard on a Friday afternoon. So I would be open to, it's the pleasure of the committee, to push ahead, but and do something with a fresh mind. And I would make myself available over the weekend, or whenever. I just need it, but we need to. I don't want to do it twice. If we have a work group, and we work all weekend on it, then we could present the results. But I'd hate to have to then go through it again with the committee. And
some of the administrations may mirror some of Senator Hester's, but the 3 that we just adopted were not in yours. So there are different voices and different moving parts here. But let's try and take Senator Washington's proposal, and let's start to go through these that we have specifically in front of us. If by adopting some of them, it reduces that list from the administration, all the better. But I do have set aside Monday evening between 5 and 8. I'm not saying we need all 3 hours to continue any work that's not done. All that being said, in 10 minutes, a number of senators want to go across to the second floor to be there for the signing of the tax credit bill. So we are going to take a half hour or so break. But I would like to make a little progress on this. So that's my proposal. Anybody object? Okay. So then the question becomes, should we start with Senator Hester's or Senator Kagan's? Okay, let's knock out Senator Kagan's, then we'll just work our way through Senator Hester's, and maybe between today and Monday, somebody can trim down the administration amendments that are actually captured in Senator Hester, so we hopefully will see a more manageable list. Let's go to Senator Kagan's on page whatever.
So, colleagues, I'm going to save Ms. Foxworth the time. She was kind enough to draft these, but page 69, I'm not kidding. We're going to zoom through all of these, and I'm thinking they're probably not controversial. Page 69 of the packet, and you'll see that it refers to pages 38 and 39. It's kind of a usage specificity thing. If you see on page lines 14 and 15 on page 38, and lines 26 and 27 on page 39, it says the criteria for determining when an incident must be reported, and then it says the manner in which to report and the time period. So when is time. That is a temporal word. And so when is actually imprecise. So I am proposing that we change when to whether. So whether to report, then basically how, and then the time of its reporting. So it's a clarifying word nerd amendment in two places. So moved.
Let me ask you a question. Are we ever going to have a time where we don't want an
Yes.
incident reported, not the details of it? I mean, I'm not,
That's the next amendment, we get to that.
well, but that's implied here. In other words, I guess I would have to really be convinced that there's a time that we don't report to the legislature, the public, that there was an incident. Maybe not all the details, but that there was an incident. I mean, I don't think that includes, 200 attempts at our cybersecurity system every day, which get rejected.
Well,
So,
Mr. Chair, maybe we ought to do them in reverse order then. On
Okay.
page 70, and this is in conjunction, in conversation with the Maryland, Delaware, DC Press Association. I think issues of transparency are important. We do live stream. The exemption from the live streaming law was removed by the House. I think that was appropriate since they can still go into closed session. But on page 70, it gives some flexibility in coordination with the department, determine whether notification of an incident shall be reported to the public. And so that's a question of when there is a national security risk, that at least maybe for a short period of time, something should be kept confidential, and when it should be disclosed right away to the press and therefore the general public. I think that conversation was missing from this bill, and so that is my proposal on page 70.
well, that's
In the
on-
packet.
That's on 1202.
Oh, shoot, it's supposed to be it's supposed to be both. It's supposed to be both. Different pages. Ms. Foxworth, maybe you can help us find where that would be, but it's the same, yeah. Same language.
Let me ask the same question I had. Replacing when with whether leaves an option that it's not reported at all. And I guess the when, if they have to wait a week or a month to secure is one thing, but not reporting it gives me a tiny bit of heartburn in terms of transparency. So that's my reaction. Let me go to Senator Hester and then back to the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first of all, in the lines that we're looking at, we're talking about for the reporting of cybersecurity incidents to a local emergency manager. So this is not necessarily about transparency with the public. It's about whether you report it to your emergency manager person. And I'm texting with Do It, and they say that there are times when incidents are so small they do not need to be reported. And so I think that we could accept, whether, and then they would define, there'd be a list of what types of incidents have to be reported to your emergency manager, which, you just deal with on your own.
Do we have language to define what those are? In other words,
Well, I
if
think,
we say, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I mean, if we go to weather, I understand the small little attacks that get rejected by the software, that's immaterial. But like what happened with the Health Department or Baltimore City or Baltimore County, I don't think we can, it's a question of whether, it's a question of when. So I don't know what that criteria would be absent having language.
So, once again, I think they're two separate issues. This is about reporting to emergency managers, and it says that the state chief information security officer shall determine the criteria. So I think that there's a fair amount of work that has to go into determining these criteria for reporting to your emergency managers, and I think our state CISA will define that.
Okay, so that's speaking in favor of removing the when to a whether?
Yes, I would support the vice chair's word change.
Okay. Back to you, Vice Chair.
I was just going to say, if you look, Mr. Chair, at line 17 on page 64, and on line 29 and 30 on page 65, I just want to, with your reading of it, it's really, then it's redundant. when an incident is a time period, and then it says the time period. So the question, so the suggestion for whether is clarity because it makes it different as opposed to redundant. And it is the first question of whether it meets either the too high or the too low. It's either too small and don't bother anybody, or holy crap, this is really sort of a national security challenge. So if there's, God forbid, a challenge at Pax River or at NIST or at NSA, I'm not sure that we want the general public getting access to that information instantly. Maybe at some point that gets released, but first maybe it has to be addressed, mitigated, and all that, and then after the fact, holy cripes, we just had this thing happen. And so I do think that the first litmus test, and I don't know if there's anyone in the audience, do we have experts here who are, I see some nodding. I saw some nodding when I was saying stuff before.
Right, but let me ask this question again, back to what Senator, this is when a unit of state government has an incident. This isn't even to the public. So, I mean, why would we make it whether? I don't know. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. Maybe this is too nuanced. I don't know. I don't know. Thoughts, committee?
So what the liaison for Do It is telling me is that each attempt that is rejected is still an incident, technically. So you don't want to have to report all of your rejected incidents.
So we will give them hopefully a half hour or sometime quickly to do that. So assume 30 minutes from now. Okay, we're now streaming again. It is a voting session on cybersecurity, Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee. The question was, who has procurement authority generally on IT? And the second question will be, what about procurement on cybersecurity-related material or resources?
So, as it stands now, cybersecurity and information technology goes through states. States have that authority, state agency rather, have that authority, and they go through DGS. There's a distinction between telecommunications, procurement, and information technology and cyber, though. So a lot of what House Bill 1346 is doing is changing not just cyber procurement, but also IT and telecommunications procurement. So kind of want to be clear that those are three distinctive things. Telecommunications has more hands-on touch points with Department of Information Technology versus IT and cyber procurement, which is through state agencies and through the locals, but it has to be coordinated with do-it policy.
Can you come up to the desk? And again, this is DGS, do it is not here, so we take it for, that's one agency's opinion.
Introduce yourselves again.
Again, thank you. Who you are? Oh,
Good afternoon, Ellen Robertson, DGS,
Department of General Services.
And Devin Neal, Department of General Services.
Okay, your position on procurement relating to those three areas that the council just laid out is what?
DGS's position on procurement is that it should remain with DGS as the procurement expert. We consult on a very strong basis with DO-IT in the preparation of the procurement and in the meeting of their needs.
And are the amendments from the administration change that? Or does the bill as it came across from the House change that? Or do Senator Hester's amendments change that?
So the bill as it's amended integrates Department of General Services concerns because it allows that authority to retain with the states. As amended in the House, so as it came in here in the House. On third reader, it allowed it to retain with the states. So.
Or Senator Hester, do you have a?
Right, so cyber preparedness unit is a unit within DO-IT, right? So their authority to procure resources is a little different from all state agencies in their oversight over all state agencies. So that's a distinction that I'm trying to carve out. But later in the bill,
Senator Hester?
probably earlier in the bill.
Can I go? Yeah. So I was just going to say that I offered an amendment on page 21.
On the page.
I mean, there's a couple different places, but part of my amendment was on page 21, which would strike part of,
Hold on.
And you all are okay with this?
21 as a bill number or a packet number?
Okay.
on bill number 1346, as it came across from the House. Sorry, so, now I got lost. Page,
Page 46, bill number 21, bill page number 21. Okay, so we're looking at lines 22 to 26, is that correct?
yes.
Okay,
And
so-
so I struck, my amendment would strike part of Roman numeral 6 on lines 23 through 26, and I just have to find my amendment now in the packet.
Well, we're looking at it.
Okay, well, Sorry, I was looking at the bill as amended, as not amended.
Well, we're working off of the amendment packet,
This is the third reading without her amendments, and this one is her amendment.
page 46, which is the House bill as amended plus your proposed amendments. Yes.
Yeah, so I struck.
Hold it.
On all of them.
I'm just getting a little confused. Is there any way, if we're just gonna go by subject, to say what it is in the current House bill before us, before we start trying to amend it?
No, that's,
I mean,
We're-
where do we stand
okay.
in procurement right now?
On page 46, lines 22 to 26, the underlined language was put in by the House, and I would assume the cross-out was Senator Hester's amendment.
That is correct.
Okay, so let's take a second, read that paragraph. As it came across from the House, let's hold on the Hester amendment, it had the agencies maintaining fairly broadly their own procurement.
Right.
Does everyone get the same read as I do from those lines?
So basically, what we're saying is, they already were doing this. Gonna clearly put it in here that they can maintain what they're currently doing.
That's correct.
Okay, just so I understand.
Hester?
So my amendment would have, which strikes on line 24, from including, it strikes including the procurement of information technology, equipment, and services. Because they're not actually doing, it's my understanding that they're not actually doing this right now, that DGS is doing it. So, I mean, the drafting said that it's maintaining something that's not actually already happening. So I think it's okay if you just take out the procurement piece, and obviously DGS is the expert on procurement here.
First of all, is that your reading of this?
Yes.
Senator Simon Ayer.
Just for clarity, if we take the House 22 through 26 with the Hester amendment that strikes that out, that basically just codifies current practice?
Current,
Yes.
I have one point, because it's my understanding that states, procurement as it is now for IT and cyber, states still go through DGS to procure. So which was why my interpretation was, this is current practice, right? Allowing the state to maintain their IT and to procure it through DGS, though that's unlisted, but that is like the meaning of the statute. It's similar to what's happening policy-wise. I think this could be clarifying, but I want to point out that if we do take out including procurement of information technology, equipment, and services, that is altering it, and it may be construed to limit the authority of that state agency's interactions with DGS. So if the intention is keep it as it is, states going through DGS to procure information technology materials and cybersecurity materials, I think the language as amended in the House version may be clearer in that intent. But I also want to caution striking this language out because it is a modification of current practice, and it seems like the will is to maintain current practice. This is a deviation of that, as I read it in counsel with other counsel. So I'm going to be clear on that.
Yeah, that's the way I'm reading it too, and I'm just wondering why we would want to modify that. So, Senator Hester, I'm not understanding why you think this is helpful or important to remove these two lines.
I believe DGS can clarify, but it's my understanding that an agency goes through DGS to procure. They're not actually doing their own procurement.
Correct.
That is current practice.
That's my understanding too.
That is correct.
So, Ms. Foxwell, are you saying that if we strike it, that the agency would not be able to be a part of the procurement? That they would not have the authority to require that they be a part of making the decision?
So
Is that what you, I mean, just.
in part, right, like
Okay.
it may limit,
Right, right, right.
their authority.
So if we want to maintain current practice, but also empower, or authorize, or require that DGS isn't just deciding for the agency what is best for them, is there language, is there something we need to do to achieve that? Because I believe that that's what we're trying to achieve.
And so that's what I think this language is trying to say.
Right.
This language in House Bill 1346, lines 22
Right.
through 26.
And is that saying that now, or is there a limit? Because I thought,
Oh, right, so this is just for information technology.
right,
And actually not included in this is cyber, so that's another consideration. But telecommunications is different. So telecommunications policy, as it's stated now,
Right.
for the states goes through DO-IT, separate consideration. This is saying the posture of information technology procurement is remaining the same. I think that this is the best way to maintain current policy.
So as-
And to make sure that that is a policy for cyber too, I would recommend including cybersecurity in that, just to be exceedingly certain
okay,
that's what we're doing.
okay.
But that's not my call.
Let me ask you a question. If the agency wants to upgrade their IT or feel they have shortcomings while you do the actual purchasing, how or when does their voice and their needs get transmitted to you, and what role does that play?
There's a collaborative relationship between the agency that has a need and the agency that physically does the procurement. Procurement is just a specific means of acquiring the needs that the agency that is going to use this has stated to DGS.
Okay.
So let me ask a follow-up question then, Senator. I'll get Hester in Washington. If procurement has an explicit definition and implication, if that were changed to say acquisition, does that help or not at all? So it doesn't shift procurement authority to the agency. If in normal situations, they go through DGS.
How about coordinate or manage, or maybe we need a thesaurus?
Yeah. Okay, I'm not sure who I saw first, if I saw Senator Hester or Senator Washington. Senator Hester?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have just sent you all to your laptop account an IT procurement flow chart, which I received a couple weeks ago, which outlines this coordination that they are talking about between DO-IT and the agencies. And so I received this originally from the Lieutenant Governor, who used to be the Secretary of the Department of General Services. He said they've worked a lot on this relationship between DO-IT and DO-IT and DGS. There have been issues in the past. I think DGS is probably understaffed like all of us are, but there's made a lot of improvements. And this flow chart is the current practice. And I'm an engineer by training, not a lawyer, so I don't fully understand what lines 22 through 26 do, but the intent, I think, is to just try to ensure that this close relationship, which has been negotiated between DO-IT and DGS, remains intact. There's a lot of thought that's gone into it. Attached in the email that you'll get from me, there's also like a 4 or 5 page memo if you really want to get into the weeds.
Where are we on, so I believe we want to keep 22 through 26. Do we want to exclude those 8 words? Senator, I was just going to, Senator Hester is suggesting we take out including the procurement of information, technology, equipment, and services. We remove that language because it's not being done now. Let's just get a throw on that. Sure.
Yeah. Ms. Foxworth?
Yes.
I'm MDOT. I'm Maryland State Police. I'm a particular agency, and I need more stuff.
Right.
And I've identified the stuff that I need, and I'm going to work with my friends over at DGS. Tell me just in as plain a, like, third grade level English, if you can, so that I understand it and we can all understand it. With all of 22 through 26, how would it work? And with 22 to 26, but without the language that has been suggested to be excised, what can I or can I do? How does that change the process?
So if you are looking for equipment, right? If you are Department of Transportation and you are looking for 2 HP laptops.
Great.
Go through DGS on your own.
Yep.
DGS. If you are looking for.
Wait, hold on. That's not what Ellen's saying.
MDOT doesn't go through DG.
Okay,
so
okay.
maybe
Pick
MDOT
an
was a
agency.
poor example.
ABC agency.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thanks for
fair.
that clarification.
Okay.
So let's pick an agency that does go through MDOT and is not carved out.
ABC agency that isn't DGS, that isn't DoIT, that isn't, just ABC agency.
Right. So if it's for the actual equipment, then that's going through DGS.
Okay.
Through their procurement process. If it is for, and that's for the equipment and that's for the services. So
Hardware,
that's for
software.
Hardware, software,
maintenance
maintenance,
agreements,
repairs.
all that.
Right.
Great.
Same case for cybersecurity.
Okay, and if this language, if this line is deleted, including the procurement of information, technology, equipment, and services, then what?
I don't think anything changes.
So it actually says, this actually may be erroneous because it says, well, they'll be able to maintain the services that they have, but possibly they won't be able to procure through DGS. If we strike that, as I read it, so ABC agency, right? So under this language,
The full
and
thing?
under current law,
Yeah,
if ABC agency is trying to get a laptop and is trying to get a repair for a laptop, they go through DGS on their own. They don't have to go through DoIT in order to secure that procurement.
yep.
If we take out procurement of IT equipment and services, then that part would be removed. They would not be able to do the procurement of that laptop and of the repair of that laptop on their own, which then begs the question, who do they have to go to and through,
But
So-
ABC,
as I read it?
but ABC agency doesn't have procurement authority as stated in current law.
Right.
So I don't know that removing that language is going to change anything.
Does it add another hurdle? Last question. Does it add another hurdle so I can't just call DGS and say, hi, I need a new laptop? Does it mean I've got to somehow get permission from DoIT or some other thing before coming back to DGS to actually place the order?
Under the bill or under the amendments?
Without the.
Without the Senator
Eight
Hester
words.
amendments?
Without the proposed excising.
Okay, so
Or
without.
with the
With the proposed
Yeah.
excising. So with the proposed excising, what would happen is the unit of state government will be able to maintain their hardware. They'll be able to maintain their equipment. But procurement of that hardware and equipment would be changing in some way.
I don't think so.
Let me make a suggestion here to sort of obviate this situation. And it's soft language, and I think it gets to yes. We say, including take out the word procurement, the ability to seek information technology, equipment, and services to support the mission. So it takes away the legal procurement responsibility. I don't know if it resolves it. We have a little difference of explanation here, but I think this sort of removes it from the table. Any objection to that? Well, I think procurement comes up somewhere else, so I want to get anywhere else it's in the bill. I'm just suggesting they don't have procurement authority now, they have to go through DGS. But we want to make it clear that if they need technology and equipment, they obviously continue to have that authority to seek it. I couldn't come up with. Get rid of the word procurement and procurement of, and put in something like ability to seek information technology, equipment, and services to support the mission. I couldn't come up with anything better. Then we need to move on. Look, there's a question whether this is relevant at all, whether we're talking about how many angels are on the dance on the head of a pin. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Procurement comes up a couple other places. I don't think this is the fundamental place. Okay. Sure. I don't know. Okay, the motion on the table is just to remove those 8 words, the Hester Amendment. All those in favor of the Hester Amendment signify by raising your hand. I see 4 hands. Those opposed? 4-3, it passes. Okay. Okay, those words are stricken, struck, whatever. Does the issue of procurement come up again in 1346?
It does, actually right under lines 27 through 29, and this is local procurement. So,
Where are we?
page 21.
Same place, 2
yeah,
lines below.
Lines 27 through 29, I'm trying to address the. So, the language here, so the posture for state agencies to procure under current law is similar to how it is for local governments procuring services. They'll go through DGS, that doesn't change. This language, lines 27 through 29, would authorize the coordinating of procurement for state governments and for local governments
By who?
by the department. So this is the Secretary of Do-It under this language. So Secretary of Do-It is coordinating local procurement. My understanding was that that was problematic for DGS, but that may be different.
If I could speak to the intent?
Sure.
The intent is to achieve economies of scale for our local governments. So let's say that there is cybersecurity product X, and they all want to buy it. We want the state, and probably DGS, to have a contract with 3 or 4 vendors, which the locals can buy off of at a lower price than they would achieve on their own. That is the intent of the initial recommendation in the report. And probably not drafted right.
And can,
And I'm going to ask DGS on this. It says providing the procurement of managed cybersecurity services. I'm not an attorney. We may have, I guess not too many. We got a couple of the staff. Does this shift procurement authority on cybersecurity services to do it? And if so, are you fine with it or not fine with it?
It doesn't shift because current law still provides for it at DGS. We had suggested language, modifying the language slightly to providing or coordinating the ability to seek or to achieve or something along those lines, manage cybersecurity services. So they coordinate with the agency that is the procurement agency in acquiring these.
But you were concerned enough that you wanted to remove the word procurement.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
what,
clarity is important.
I just want to be clear.
Okay.
I'm not meaning pejorative, but there's been some question about shifting authority in various parts of the bill. And we've heard from many different places, you're shifting too much, you're not shifting enough. And one of the authorities is procurement. And I want us to be explicitly clear what we think is the right state policy. So that's why I asked that question. And while you don't think it gives them the authority, you are suggesting taking out the word procurement, which implies that it might shift authority if we leave that word there. What's the will of the body?
Can I make one clarification?
Please.
So for local governments, providing procurement is an authority that is endowed with that locality, assuming it's in alignment with do it, like policy and best practices. Coordinating is not necessarily a delineated role of the department for cybersecurity at the local level. But this says provide or coordinate. So providing could alter procurement for locals heavily because now they provide it on their own and they go through DGS to do it. But if the department is doing it, they are asserting themselves as a primary procurement agency that gets to sign off on local government's procurement. And I'm not sure if that is what the intent is. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Again, we're not JPR and we understand the intent, but we have to be somewhat careful here because shifting authority has implications. So I just, and again, I don't have the answers. I'm not a cyber expert. I'm not an attorney. I'm not sure. Senator Hester, Senator Washington, as Vice Chair, whoever wants to go first, really, I didn't.
Fine. So, would locals be able to coordinate amongst themselves and then go to the state and ask for them to procure it?
So under the bill, for telecommunications, they would be able to.
Okay.
They can request that help at the local level. There isn't a prohibition against them
No, I
asking to do it for help, but the autonomy of locals is something that current practice and the law recognize. So if the locals wanted to coordinate with another locality, that isn't out of the realm of possibility, but they don't have to. They can go directly through DGS. They don't have to get approval from Department of Information Technology as it stands now. They don't have to coordinate with Department of Information Technology now.
Right, so Senator Hester, I don't know that we can legislate or require the locals no, but are they authorized and incentivized, I suppose? So are you able to authorize and incentivize locals so that we can get the economies of scale that the senator is talking about? I mean, you're saying you can do it in one area, but you can't do it in the other area? They're not already authorized to buy things together?
So
I don't know why, I guess I'm trying to figure out why do you have to explicitly put it in the bill if they can do it?
My question is, I'm under the understanding that there are other state contracts that locals can piggyback onto. And that's what the counties want to do
Right.
for cybersecurity products.
Right. So how do we do that?
I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm asking you to do what she said. In other
Just
words, just to say explicitly that if you want to purchase in this area, that locals have the right to work on an existing contract.
So that could possibly touch on other parts of the bill in terms of like the information sharing and operate the ISAC Center, if we want it to be explicit, because there are information sharing provisions. However, if we just want to specify that procurement as it stands for the locals, can coordinate with other localities. There isn't a blatant prohibition of that. We could put that in the code by just saying, under the entity, it would be under 22 through 26, where it says allowing the agency to maintain their own information technology and coordinate with other, well, it would have to be duplicate language for the locality. So allowing a local government unit to maintain their information technology or coordinate with another locality. But that probably wouldn't be better suited, sorry, Senator, go ahead. That may be a different question from allowing the Department of Information Technology through the Secretary to provide for
So,
that.
I mean, if I had, I think the way that we want to draft it, and DGS is here, can we just instruct DGS to allow for cybersecurity, to allow existing cybersecurity contracts for locals to hop on? I mean, I don't think Do It should be doing it. But whenever you have a large purchase of cybersecurity products, can we just let locals hop on?
But just so I understand, section 3-5, 3.5-303, when it says the secretary, that's the Do It secretary, correct?
That's right, yep, that's the part, yep, do it.
And so when it talks about providing or coordinating the procurement of managed, that's talking about Do It, potentially, depending on interpretation, having this procurement authority on cybersecurity services.
Right.
And either that's not what we mean, or it is what we want to do, we just have to be very explicit on that. Did I cut you off?
you're fine. But I do have a thing.
Well,
Can I say something? I'm sorry.
sure.
The locals have the opportunity now to hop onto these contracts that Senator Hester referred to. So I'm questioning the need for this language.
Okay. So if this language creates more problems than it resolves, any objection to striking it?
Could I just add my
Sure,
thought?
absolutely.
So, Ellen?
Yes,
Yeah.
22,
No.
Senator.
So here's my bias, colleagues. DGS are our procurement experts. They've set up Emma. They've been working on this stuff for years. They're sort of the folks who buy stuff for the state and make sure we get a good price and it's transparent and all that. That's where I start off. No offense, I don't know that they are the go-to experts on what to buy to be cyber safe. So I wonder whether there shouldn't be some language that is along the lines of that DGS should do the procurement, but when it comes to cyber, they should do it in consultation with Do It and get coaching from. And Senator Hester, whether that's state cyber stuff or local county stuff, cyber stuff or whatever, it just seems like we're overthinking this, that DGS should manage all that, but that we should have all the right people coaching them. And once we figure out what it is, what cyber stuff we want, then everybody goes to DGS and places the order and saves taxpayer money by doing it efficiently. Now, I don't know what that means for lines and 27 through 30 or section 305 point blah, blah, blah. That's just a concept. I don't know what Senator Hester or Alexis or anyone else thinks of that.
I think large parts of this bill are codifying practice, and we're getting very nuanced and try to micromanaging. We are hearing from DGS that they confer with the appropriate agency on a regular basis. So yeah, I think that's implied. It's the practice. The more we try to wordsmith what they're doing in each step of the way, I think we're getting into trouble, to be honest with you. I would suggest we just remove 27 and 29. Those, Senator.
Trying to follow what we're doing here. So lines 22 to 23, or 26, we did that, and that's basically codifying existing practice. And I'm hearing DGS say they can already hop on, so we don't need this language. And and you're suggesting we strike it, I'm fine with that. I'm just thinking, we've been here an hour to debate, we're not moving the ball forward at all, we just basically codified what currently doing and striking what they already can do. At least in procurement. I mean,
I think that's true, but I wanted us to be clear on procurement, because that has been one of the issues I've heard the most about over the last 4 weeks. I wanted to be clear where the word procurement comes up. We know what we're doing, and we're making the decisions, whether it's clarifying. I think we are moving the ball. I think we're getting clear on what we want to do or not do. And I think we're generally getting to the point of saying DGS should retain it. Look, I have my own concerns with DGS, and unfortunately, they had to be political in the past 8 months because of the administration on buying things they shouldn't have bought. So I'm not here to applaud either do it or DGS. I have my own criticism. But if this is how things have been working, let's just do it, but let's just be very clear on not adding new procurement issues. So I hear you, Senator, but if we can get as clear as we can, and I know it's taken a long time, but I think if we're clear on who's covered by this bill and who's covered by procurement, and then the third issue is the final authority to centralize, I think the other stuff becomes very secondary. I had the 2 Howard County senators.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I wanted to follow up on some of those concerns and also what Senator Kagan was saying. I also have concerns with DGS, obviously, and no offense to the representatives that are here, but I think the piece that Senator Kagan was talking about coordinating and making sure, maybe I shouldn't use the word coordinating, but consulting with other departments that are the subject matter experts. And, you know, I hate to bring up South Korean tests, for example, but for whatever the shortcomings were with those, or blue flame masks, you know, for whatever the shortcomings were of those procurements, I think there was not maybe the level of consultation that would have occurred with, say, MDH on those procurements or ventilators that didn't work or whatever, that consultation is important, as what Senator Kagan was talking about. And so I think having that clear is an important piece that we do need to address, and making sure that those proper lines of consultation are there, whether you call it coordinating or consulting or connecting with, which is not legal language, obviously, but somehow enshrining that so that that process is there for DGS to follow, and making sure that the proper subject matter experts are consulted with, I think is important.
And Senator, before I call on Senator Hester, I can't help but say those things that both of us and many on the committee were concerned with were political issues. And it wouldn't have mattered if they called Department of Health or they called God. If the second floor said, you're going to buy these, they would have, and again, I'm not here to blame these people. They've been working for the department for years. They were told to buy these blue flame masks, even though the company hadn't been around for 36 hours. And they could have called Department of Health, but they would have been told the same thing, buy the damn thing. So I'm not sure that would have obviated what happened in the past 8 months. But I don't think we disagree on this. Senator Hester.
So as I mentioned originally, I would second the striking of this language. However, we're not just trying to codify practice. We want DGS to proactively develop a contract in consultation with Do It that our locals can buy off of. That is not currently happening. Right, so, I mean, I would say that somewhere else in the bill, you know, somewhere else in the bill, we say DGS and Do It shall work together to develop a contract which locals can buy off of. And that could be intent language, but that is the intent, and it's not currently happening right now.
Okay, let's do this. The motion is to remove 27 to 29, and when we come back Monday, there'll be another amendment adding that concept. And someone needs to take responsibility for coming up with that. DGS, you've been given that, granted that doesn't have to be long, no long memo, 2 sentences. Okay. Now, is there anywhere else that we'll try to, if we wrap this, let's give it 45 more minutes and then we'll stop, if that's okay. Yes, Senator.
We're getting so far, I think, in the woods now, we can't see the trees. Was this be an appropriate time I could ask a question on the overall bill and how it relates to the amendments? So, I went back and looked at some of the original testimony. Looks like a lot of this stuff got changed through different studies and whatever, and DGS started these different practices in 2017 with the chief personnel officer. The bill would move a lot of stuff over to do it. When they were in here the other week, it sounded like they didn't really want some of that stuff. So my concern is you're switching back and forth who does what every 5 years is not a good model. So with the amendment process and what all we're going through now, are we going to get to a point where everybody can come and support this thing? Can DGS, are they still going to oppose it after we spend another however many hours because of what's in their letter? Or is this working towards a way where they're going to support it and everybody at the table is going to be happy?
Well, Senator, more people might be happy, but again, I'm going to talk about the three issues that I've gotten to understand. It's the procurement issue, who's covered and who's not covered, and the move towards centralization and, I hate to call it command and control. And I know there are people who still, agencies that still don't want to be covered by this. So I don't think everybody will be happy. I don't know about the centralization. I don't know if everyone will be happy there. I think on the procurement, I don't think do it as crying for that authority. So for us clarifying it, I think more people will be happy. So that's, Senator Hester, if you want to add to try to answer this question or not,
Also note, I believe the letters you're referring to were to the bill as originally drafted, which I did not have the chance to read before it was dropped. And so there was uncodified language at the end, which talked about, drastically moving people and resources, which has all been struck. The House struck it on its way over. So I think a lot of the agencies dropped their opposition on the way over. So I think they were in a much better place than we were at the time when those letters were drafted. And the amendments that my amendments, half of them are from the agencies. We have another long list at the back, which is to this bill. And I don't see here the same kind of concerns in those that I did in the previous version.
So it's kind of getting back to my main question is, after we go through all the possible amendments, I'm not sure which ones we're going to take, which one not, will it get to a point where DGS is okay with it? Are they?
Answer that, I can't.
That's who I'm.
Then the question is, do it, MDEM policy, local governments?
A lot of agencies are affected. Some still want out, even with these amendments. Do not want to be covered. And I'm going to call it, if, after we deal with procurement, does this come up in any other place? Have we resolved the procurement issue?
Gone already. I think we're done.
So DGS believes we have addressed it.
Take a look at this and still think if you think the same way.
I think with assisting with is fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
So on procurement, we're going to have to go through it. We're keeping it like it is. We're going to be more explicit in the consultation with Do It, and I don't know if other agencies are not, but we're not shifting procurement authority, basically.
And I may just point you all to 34.
34.
Page 34, lines 18 through 21.
34 at the top of the page or bottom of the page?
Middle, bottom.
No.
34.
Oh, sorry, the third reader bill, the non-Senator Hester amendment bill.
No, we're using the one in the amendment packet.
Okay, all right, so let me pull that up. I'm looking at one a little different. I have it, thank you. So, this page 34 of the bill, it is page 35, page 59 of the reprint. This is right, so that's but with the bill, it's not, so that's just something to point out, right? This language that we're talking about, it sounds like the intent from Senator Hester is to replicate similar language for the state agencies, for Department of Information Technology to assist procurement at the local level. So, however, this was removed, but we're mentioning possibly retaining that language locally, so we may want to.
We're going to put some language in somewhere, they're going to propose some language. But I just want to be clear, if there's any other language shifting procurement, I want us to be aware of it, transparent, and make a conscious decision. We like doing it, we don't like doing it.
Thank you. I was just going to point out that on page 49 of the reprint, on line 17 through 19, procurement. Page 49 of the reprint,
49,
page 24 of the bill.
and what line?
In line 17 through 19, the bill as we received it from the House had each department, I don't know, but it said the department may not purchase. And so my intent of this amendment was to put it back the way it needed to be. So I don't know if DGS, if that now does that on 17 and 19 with it striking the unit of state government and putting it back into DGS.
So that may, if we clarify the posture of what we just dealt with on the page 35, I think, where we talked about DGS coordinating with DoIT, that would be reflected, and we would just have to make that a technical change.
Okay. The chair just asked if there was a mention of procurement, and so that would be technical. That's fine if it's technical.
Right. But I want to point out the local piece on 34, not to belabor the point, but 59, thank you, of the packet, flipping back. The language that would have allowed DoIT to assist with local procurement has been removed under Senator Hester amendments, not removed in the House bill. The role of DGS in procurement for the locals will determine the language that's in play here. So if they are out, if Senator Hester's amendments are accepted, striking out the assistance of the Department of Information Technology and assisting with local government procurement, that's a little different since it's been removed from what I'm hearing the intent is, which is to coordinate on at least the state level with DGS for the procurement. If that's removed, Department of Information Technology is not going to have an assistance role at the local level. So that's another thing to be mindful of.
Clarifying question? Ms. Foxworth, what I see in the place where you are now, page 59, the currently crossed off lines 18 through 21, it says, coordinate, assist with the procurement of managed cybersecurity services. So I just want to clarify, the hardware, the software, all that would not be covered by this. It's just, I want to hire a vendor, I want
Right.
to hire a company of some sort,
That is
a consultant
Correct.
of something.
right,
Which is different from DGS buying stuff.
right, which is not contemplated in this portion, because that portion of the actual equipment is reverts to, or is the way the current law allows it to be. So locals going through DoIT handling it, locals going through DGS and handling that on their own. Now this is integrating for those services, for the vendors, for the masks, for other supplies. Well, it wouldn't be vendors and masks because we're
I was
talking
just gonna
specific for
say-
cybersecurity.
Okay.
So, we're talking repair of hardware, we're talking about restoration of cybersecurity systems, Department of Information Technology under this will have a greater role, a greater say in how those services are acquired or procured than how the bill came to us through the House, if we go with Senator Hester's amendments and strike that language. So, and maybe I can word that a little differently, starting from the actual amendments and then going to Senator Hester's bill. If we were to accept the third reader changes that came to us from the House, the Department of Information Technology is going to have a greater say in local governments acquiring of hardware, software at the local level. You take it out, which is what the amendments seem to be, the intent of the amendment seems to be, that goes back to how it is without the Department of Information Technology playing an assistance role.
You just said hardware, software, but this line specifically
Services.
talks about services. It doesn't
Services.
say hardware or software.
So restoration of computers, services, fixing, editing, upgrading the cybersecurity equipment. So
Firewalls, yeah, whatever.
laptops, firewalls, those things.
Bogged. Let's go to one other area, and then we'll call this a day or a week. In terms of who is covered and who is not covered, send us to that page, again, in the version in the packet. Or anybody, if, no, yeah, yes, I do. Five.
Say that again?
Now, these groups are exempt from
These are the
what?
ones that we're exempting.
Bottom of 44, top of 45. This is one of the other areas that has been somewhat contentious. The listed groups, the first half are already exempt. A number, 2, 4, 6, six others, excuse me, have also been proposed. What would they be exempt from?
So this is exemption from do it oversight in general. Do it policy, any changes that we make in coordinating resources, any modifications that we make to procurement, any things that we require for assessments, anything that we do for regional exercises, any cyber prep requirements that we implement, reports, they are out, yes.
I know pension system is here, or they were. You would like to be added to that list?
Yes, sir.
Are there any other agencies? Well, look, it's, again, it's a policy decision, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, there are 6 that are added here, and,
Have another.
and I don't know if in the administration amendments, they add more and remove other agencies.
Didn't the Maryland State Police, did you guys want out? Yeah,
So, state police went out,
you want out, right? Yes,
MSP, pensions. Are there any others that the administration supported being taken out?
Do we know that the administration supported those two?
Well, I assume if you're saying you want out, they've got the authority from the administration to say they want out.
MSP is
Okay.
pending, isn't it?
Okay. Who else wants out?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you please clarify what we're getting out of?
I can't hear it.
What are they being exempted from?
Oversight by Do It, I think, is how it was described.
Right, the requirement to comply with do it policies, to perform do it trainings, to perform do it assessments.
Look, ladies and gentlemen, and Senator Hester, correct me if I'm wrong, there are some people who think the status quo is okay and is working, and some want to move towards more centralization in some way, shapes, or form. And I hate to be a reductionist, but that is one of the issues confronting us. And some people, like I said, are fine with the status quo and think we're okay with it. Some think a centralization is the way to go, and some thinks it'll create some problems. So I just want to get it out on the table so we know what we're dealing with here. So what I think I heard was MSP, pension, are there any others? Yes?
Public safety and correctional services would like out.
That's in the administration. Are there any others in the administration amendment? Yes, I'm sorry.
In these discussions, I've always heard the Maryland Transportation Administration. I don't see them listed in here. Is that a special case?
Aren't you MDOT? Yeah.
I'm from MDOT, yeah, but I would need to confirm with our folks there, yeah.
But I thought they
What'd she
weren't
say?
under Do It.
She's from MDOT, but she was to confirm.
Maybe-
That she's from MDOT, or that, you do know who your employer is? I'm sorry, Senator Sonderman.
Maybe Senator Hester can, but in the discussions I recall that the Transportation Department was not, they had their own IT, cybersecurity, and they were not under Do It. Is that correct, or?
We currently have a federated system where, might say, a
Federated.
federated system where 30%, maybe 35% of our agencies contract with Do It under a payback model for Do It shared services. The other ones are currently doing their own thing.
Right.
And some of them are doing well and some of them are not. Maryland Department of Health was one that had just basically begun working with Do It because they realized they needed help, and then the attack happened. So I have, I mean, I have.
Let me just follow up, because I didn't get to answer that. I don't see them in this list that they're excluded, but I also thought that they were not under Do It, so.
Right, I don't quite understand what this list does and what this list doesn't do. I thought it was more of a, maybe council could, I mean, is this a new list or is this an existing list?
This is adding on to an existing list,
But where's the existing list in current law?
in this section, right here. Yeah, 1 through 7, so.
So but which department, which statute, like which,
So,
It's under Do It statute.
it's under Do It statute? Thank you, that's my question.
I wasn't sure, thank you.
So currently, we had these first 7 that were excluded from Do It statute. And then the rest, 8 through 13, were added in the House. In my personal opinion, given that centralization now only basically includes an annual assessment and compliance with minimum standards, I don't think anybody where there's not a separation of powers should be excluded. I don't think the University System of Maryland should be excluded. I don't think pensions or the police or MDOT should be excluded, because all they have to do is complete an annual assessment, which they're doing anyways, and complying to minimum standards. The bill as drafted was dramatically different. It had us taking away systems and people. But this is a very, very, very minimum standard. So, I mean, this is a policy decision we have to make, but the only people I really think should be exempt are the State Board of Elections, the Office of the Attorney General, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Aside from them, I say everybody should be in.
Now, let me ask you a question, and I don't know if Ms. Foxworth or someone else can answer it. I'm trying to, I think it was a very fair question the senator asked, what are they being exempted from? And I heard your earlier answer. As I read A at the bottom of 44, this subtitle does not apply to changes relating to or the purchase, lease, or rental of information technology by, and then it lists them. It's not full, I don't know if they're being released from full oversight by Do It and Cybersecurity Unit. I don't know if we're reading more into this than there is. I don't know.
So my understanding with these entities was to exempt from full oversight, but if the intent is to just pare them down and for it to apply to, say, procurement or to another issue, that can be worked out. So I think that is an intent question, but I think I recall 12 and 13 being carved out because of a separation of powers issue in general, and State Board of Elections wanting to be out in general. So I may need to interact with those entities a little more to see the scope and the intent to make sure whichever entities we add apply in the right section framework.
Center. Let me ask, MSP, pensions, public safety, when you say you want out from what? I'm gonna call it soon. I'm gonna call it soon.
Thank you. For the record, Jennifer Beska, Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. Oh, sorry. Jennifer Beska, Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. When I'm looking at this particular section of the bill, which is 3.5-302, it appears as if you are asking if we want to be exempted from, as I understand it, purchase lease, all of that oversight with equipment. Is that what I'm understanding? It's,
So it is fairly limited.
okay. So what I can.
No, that was with a question mark.
Okay. So what I can tell you that I understand about our processes now as it comes to equipment is that we do work with both DO-IT and DGS. If there is IT equipment that has to be purchased, there are some items that have to go through DO-IT first and then go through the procurement process with DGS. We don't see a need for that to be legislated. And so when you ask if we want out, as I'm understanding this section, that would be my response to that, is the process is in place. For procurement? Yes, for procurement.
Okay.
That there are some items we have to go through DO-IT of just because of the nature of the item, and then there are other items that we go through DGS, and I can't take, please don't ask me for a list because I'm not prepared to speak to that today. But in doing the research for this bill, that's what we have been informed, is that it is a joint process and we are doing it currently.
So the current practice is something you're fine with?
Yes.
So then the question would become, why do you have to be taken out?
I think the question back, and I'm not trying not to answer, is that why does it have to be legislated if it's something that we already have in place?
Well, okay. Well, this language is already in law, and it covers the USM and some other stadium authority. That's already been in law.
So in answer to your question, some of our systems aren't on the Maryland State Network, and that would be one of the things that would be a concern for us. We are the repository for criminal justice record information. Some of that is federal systems, and we're not on all of it. So, you know, we would prefer the minimum as opposed to the maximum, and that would be one of our reasons for wanting to be out.
And maybe legal counsel can help me with this. I heard what we're talking about, trying to exempt out and all that, but as I look at the list of 7 in the current law, 5 of them are in the educational system, and it's not about all the procurement of the other. I really don't understand what the purpose of this section is, and then adding on like State Board of Elections and all those in there. And that may be something we can get Monday, but I'd like better clarification with that, because this really seems mostly for the educational system that they're exempting. So at least maybe Monday I can get some clarity.
And yeah, I mean, I'll just say, yeah, they were the only ones that are written in statute that are absolutely carved out from the provisions of this subtitle.
The Port Authority and the Stadium Authority. I mean, they were explicitly added. I can't remember what year, but they clearly wanted to be free to do it their way. And they're purchasing a lot of things, both of them, technology, among other things.
Maryland Transportation, I don't believe they go through do it. And so I don't know this is a complete list, and I'm just trying to understand if we're adding to this list, why we're adding the Board of Elections to this list and so forth. What's the criteria to get onto this list if we're making a policy change?
To answer your question, I'll go back to my original point. You know, I am not sure what this list is for. I think when they added 8 through 13 in the House, they were trying to exempt them from the entire bill. And I'm not sure that they accomplished what their intent was. I don't think it's, so that is my assumption. When I originally, yeah. So I think the question should not be just about procurement. It should be about who's in and who's out of the bill. And that's what I think, I think that's what we should talk about. But just in terms of the policy, in terms of who's in and who's out, I think that they were trying to signal that where there's a separation of powers issue, those people should be out. And in one of my amendments, I suggest that we as the General Assembly certify to our presiding officers that we are in minimum compliance with a standard similar to NIST, blah, 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 that is based on, that we are in compliance with these minimum standards, because we don't know that for sure right now. And so to avoid the separation of powers issue, we just have each unit of government certify to their highest power that they are in compliance with some minimum standards. Now, when I originally had my microphone on, I was just receiving texts from numerous agencies. The latest one is DHCD would like to be out. Just for the record, they had texted me and said that. No explanation offered. And then I was hearing that the administration did not give MSP, public safety, the authority to be off of do-it policy. So that's just the information that I'm getting. So it's not everybody speaking with one voice.
Okay. Last comment, and we're going to try to get out of the rabbit hole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I found the comments of Senator Hester earlier about separation of powers and independent agencies and departments to be really compelling, actually. What I wonder, and I'm going to ask Senator Hester, but if there's someone else in the room who knows it, knows the answer. When you listed the Office of the Attorney General, the Legislative Branch, the Judicial Branch, and I think you said a couple others. I think you said State Board of Elections, which I wasn't sure why they fit into that. Are the agencies that you indicated on another network, and would there be some oversight? Because I don't think we ought to let anyone off the hook who could be vulnerable.
Have to be a question for Do It. I believe we are all riding on Network Maryland. Like, we are all going down together.
Some people are off the network, I believe.
Or on a different network.
Just to clarify, the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services, some of our
that.
systems are on the network, and then we also have memorandums of understanding with the federals for the
Right.
criminal history record information, and they are not directly on the network.
NCIS, right? I mean, so that would be a separate. So, but anyone who, what, Brian, did I get that wrong?
Yeah, he was making a joke about NCIS.
Okay. So, but the Attorney General surely is on a network, and the legislative branch, obviously, we have a network, and same with the judicial branch. So I just think that even whichever agencies, as a policy matter, we say are off the hook, whether it's procurement or reports or whatever, there ought to be some oversight. I mean, it just feels like our responsibility, so.
Okay. We're going to stop. Monday at 5. Hopefully we can get clear on some of this. The other section, the other issues, we've talked about procurement and who's in and who's out. The centralization issue, which is an issue, and I would direct you to page 66, 67, which are part of Senator Hester's amendments, section 4, 5, and 6, which clearly are not as aggressive as the original 5, 6, and 7 on 69. But again, it raises the issue of centralization, which obviously some of the departments won out either on purchasing technology or not being able to do it at all. So there is a tension. Let's put it out on the table. And the other issue I would put forth is we have some accountability measures if agencies don't adopt or take corrective actions. Earlier this week, we talked about, in the other bill, about locals. What happens with locals that don't meet the minimum standards? As you recall, it said they can be pushed out of the network, but I would contend, and I know I'm probably going to create heartburn in MML or MACO, even if they're out of the network and might not jeopardize other agencies, at the end of the day, it is a problem to the state. When Baltimore County or Baltimore City went undown, and that was, the state had to come in and help. So what action we want to take to strengthen that or change that language is another issue. So there are 4 issues that we got to contend with, folks, and I don't have the answers.
Transparency, I think it needs to go back to.
Well, I think that runs through all of this, basically. So we're going to start again 5 o'clock on Monday, and hopefully we can be a little clearer. And I apologize for not being able to give this more direction. There are just a lot of moving parts and differences among the agencies and the administration and the House and Senate, and it's a complicated issue on top of all that. So I thank all of you for the time. I feel fairly confident DeWitt will be here, or they can stay on the sidelines, but I think that would be a major mistake. With that, have a great, restful weekend, committee, and people who had to stay here till 4:45 on a Friday. I guess that's what you get paid for. Thank you, we're adjourned.